For better or worse, Ghostbusters Afterlife is full of fan service. Some of these nods are seriously subtle Easter eggs, and some are very obvious and necessary references since this is of course a proper sequel. I may not have caught them all for this video, but I'm including the 20 that I thought as a fan were fun or interesting. I'm not sure what it is with Ghostbusters and food, but the writers must constantly have snacks on the brain. In fact, the original character concept for Egon included the quirk that he would be constantly munching, which explains why in 1984's Ghostbusters, he uses a classic Hostess Twinkie as a frame of reference for the amount of psychokinetic energy building up in New York City.
That's a big Twinkie.
It's also presumably why Phoebe discovers a Twinkie in the glove box of Ecto 1 after being pulled over by the cops. There's an old myth about Twinkies, that they have a near infinite shelf life, never going bad, and the only two things to survive a nuclear attack would be cockroaches and Twinkies. It may be just a myth, but I'd like to think the Twinkie in the glove box is not only from the 80s, but also still moist and delicious. Keeping on the food train, Phoebe discovers an old Nestle Crunch Bar wrapper in Egon's jumpsuit. In the original Ghostbusters, Peter awards Egon a Crunch Bar as a commendation for his seriousness. It's done jokingly, but you gotta believe Egon loves a good crunch. What I won't believe, unlike the Twinkie, is that there's anything edible left in that wrapper. In 1989's Ghostbusters 2, Ray is showing off the interesting properties of the film's mood slime by dropping it into a toaster and having it dance. There was some speculation that Ghostbusters Afterlife doesn't acknowledge Ghostbusters 2, especially because of the state of Ecto 1, the Ghostbusters car. More on that later. But director Jason Reitman has said that 2 does exist in-universe and is even referenced by the very same silver toaster appearing in Egon's house in the new film. The Staypuft Marshmallow Man is obviously one of the most iconic Ghostbusters characters. His reappearance in mini-puffed form doesn't make a huge amount of sense since in the original film, Gozer the Destroyer only took the form of Mr. Staypuft because the Ghostbusters were asked to choose the appearance of their destruction. That being said, they are darn cute, and I will allow that some of Gozer's psychokinetic energy may have held some residual memory of being a marshmallow and animated those little guys. Wow, that was some real mental gymnastics. The original Ghostbusters opens with a haunting in the New York Public Library, and the first evidence the team encounters is a tall stack of books, which, as Ray cites, is just like the Philadelphia mass turbulence of 1947. Peter jokingly says no human would stack books like that, but it turns out he's probably right, and it's definitely a ghost thing, since there's an identical stack of books in Egon's house, foreshadowing that his spirit still haunts his old digs. Hey, do you think this means ghosts are good at Jenga? I think they must be. I'm gonna say that's canon. While Phoebe's exploring Egon's basement, among the things that she discovers is a rather prominently displayed collection of glass jars and petri dishes. I think it's safe to say no one missed this reference to Egon's awkward conversation with Janine in Ghostbusters 1 when she shares that she enjoys reading and racquetball. She asks Egon if he has any hobbies and he replies, "Well, the line is one of my faves, so I'll just let it play."
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Afterlife is full of callbacks to old ghostbusting gear, some of which is key to the plot, like the obvious proton packs and ghost traps, but a few other non-essential items make an appearance as well. We see Egon's colander brainwave scanner thing that was used on Louis Tully while he was possessed as the Keymaster. Oh, and here's an original Ghostbusters Easter egg for you, just in case you missed it. Check out the monitor behind Louis. Okay, we also get the Ecto Goggles, which were mainly used for tracking ghosts and PKE valences, but we're shown in Afterlife that they were also Snapchat spectacles before there were Snapchat spectacles. I don't have a clip of that, so I just have to explain the joke. Podcast is wearing them and he takes a Polaroid photo with them. So it's a picture like Snapchat glasses, except it was the 80s, and it's a Polaroid. Okay, moving on. The book Tobin's Spirit Guide is referenced at least twice in the original film, as a place to look up the name Zuul after Dana Barrett hears it from her haunted fridge, and when Egon is describing the cult of Gozer to a captive audience whilst in jail. The book is also featured heavily in Ghostbusters spin-offs, like the animated Real Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters Extreme. In Ghostbusters the video game, it was basically your Pokedex for ghosts and would fill up after you caught them. Afterlife is the first time we actually see the book on the big screen. Not exactly gear, but a firefighter pole from the Ghostbusters New York City Fire Hall headquarters is recreated here in Egon's barn. In the first film, Ray seems to be the most excited about it, but I guess Egon has a fun side too, and included one for his spooky dirt farm. In the mid-credits scene, we learn that the old Ghostbusters Fire Hall is actually still being maintained, at least in some semblance, with Winston's financial help. We also see the classic Ecto containment system, which is a great callback, but it's definitely more of a call forward, or, foreshadowing, as we're shown a blinky light that could only mean danger. Why there would still be ghosts just locked up and unattended in there is a tough question to answer, but if we get another sequel, I'm sure we'll find out. Okay. The car. Ecto 1. There's been some chatter about this one, so let's see what we know. In Ghostbusters 2, Ecto 1 gets an overhaul. Cosmetically, it gets the Ghostbusters 2 logo painted on the side and some additional caution stripes. Other upgrades include LED ticker boards and a whole lot more high-tech looking ghost-busting equipment on top, not to mention a different license plate. And yet, the Ecto 1 in Egon's garage appears to be the version from the original film, complete with original logo and less high-tech equipment on top. To make things a bit more confusing, it does feature some upgrades, but they differ from those in the second film. This has caused some fans to speculate that Ghostbusters 2 may no longer be canon, but writer-director Jason Reitman said that that isn't the case. Remember the toaster? Anyway, the new upgrades to Ecto 1 are actually an Easter egg of their own. The car now features a retractable gunner seat, which not only pays homage to the gunner seat placed on the roof of the car in the real Ghostbusters cartoon from the late 80s, but there's actually a similar gunner seat in the Ghostbusters the video game version of the car. That game, by the way, is also considered canon, so if you think it feels like Ghostbusters 2 is missing from Afterlife, do some mental gymnastics to work out how the video game also fits into the story. Oh, as an added tidbit, I'd like to present another hot 80s franchise vehicle that features a nearly identical gunner seat, the TMNT Party Wagon Mutant Attack Van, first released in 1988. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Easter egg? I want to believe. Okay, since we're stretching things here a bit, I'm going to go out on a limb one more time and say that Egon's model farm was seriously channeling Doc Brown's clock tower model from Back to the Future. And if you don't buy that one, how about the model village from Beetlejuice? No? Sorry, maybe it's just me who's stuck in the 80s. Okay, so this is hard to call an Easter egg because it's the main plot to the film, but early on we see the Shandor mining company. It's even in the film trailers. And we hear about the mining of selenium. Ivo Shandor was the cult leader that created 550 Central Park West, the building that was used as the dimensional gate to summon Gozer in the first Ghostbusters. While in lockup, Ray explains the building was made with cold riveted girders with cores of pure selenium, which we now understand came from this very mine. In fact, it's soon revealed that Shandor is responsible for this town even existing at all, which explains why Egon came here in the first place. When the Spangler family first arrives at Egon's house, Phoebe picks up a little statue of a terror dog, the scary hellhound things that Zuul and Vince take the form of while looking for human hosts to become the gatekeeper and the keymaster. While it could be a reminder from previous adventures in Ghostbusters 1, we soon discover that of course it's related to Egon's obsession with stopping the return of Gozer the Gozerian here in Somerville. There are numbers painted around Egon's house, which we see later match the ones carved into the Temple of Gozer inside the Shandor mine. When the Scooby Gang discovers them, they realize that they're dates, and Podcast identifies 1908 as corresponding with the Tunguska Blast over Siberia. The Tunguska event is a real-life explosion that leveled 80 million trees over an area of more than 800 square miles and is generally attributed to a meteor exploding in our atmosphere, although since it was in 1908, no one can really be sure. In the original Ghostbusters, after defeating Gozer, Ray tells Louis Tully that he's just been a participant in the biggest interdimensional cross rip since the Tunguska Blast of 1909. While Ray does get the year wrong, he's covered in marshmallow, so we'll give him a pass. The discovery in the temple shows that not only was the Tunguska Blast a supernatural event, as Ray says, but it was also actually a Gozer-related event as well. While their characters are possessed by the spirits of Zuul the Gatekeeper and Vince Clortho the Keymaster, actors Carrie Coon and Paul Rudd channel their best impressions of Sigourney Weaver and Rick Moranis. Not only is this an excellent homage to the original performances, it actually makes perfect sense since they're possessed by the same spirits that appeared in the first film. This is emphasized by Zuul saying, "There is no mom, only Zuul," which I guess Zuul thinks is a really cool thing to say whenever taking over someone's body.
There is no Dana, only Zuul.
Proving that, you can't teach an old terror dog new tricks. Since we're on the topic of returning spirits, Gozer is back, and although they should probably remember the Ghostbusters, they still give us the classic line from the first film.
Are you a god?
I guess Gozer believes in second chances, but obviously this has to happen in order to set up the joke for Ray to say yes this time. It is a fun little game and it pays respect to the first movie. Without setting it up for the audience first, the OG Ghostbusters immediately crossed their proton streams when battling Gozer. Fans will remember that Egon explained in Ghostbusters 1 that crossing the streams would be bad. Bad in this case is something called total protonic reversal, all life stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Right, that's bad.
What's funny to me is that sounds a lot like what some people thought would happen in 2008 when they turned on the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva, Switzerland. Clearly it didn't happen because you're here now watching this video. Anywho, crossing the streams is how the Ghostbusters defeat Gozer in the first film, by reversing and shutting the dimensional gateway. It honestly doesn't make much sense to me that they would use this method on Gozer directly instead of on the gate, but it doesn't much matter because Gozer's ready for this trick and simply pulls the proton streams apart anyway. Okay, I've got one last one for you, and I did call it out briefly in our Ghostbusters Afterlife in 60 Seconds video. I kinda meant it as a joke, but During the climax where Egon's ghost appears behind his granddaughter Pheobe and they hold the particle thrower together against Gozer reminded me so much of a climactic move in the Dragon Ball Z series. Briefly, for those who aren't familiar, Gohan, the son of the show's main hero Goku, is fighting the Big Bad and unleashes his strongest attack to defeat him, the Kamehameha wave. It's not quite strong enough, but the spirit of Goku, who's dead at the time, shows up behind Gohan and amplifies the blast, making it strong enough to defeat the enemy, a move subsequently called the father-son Kamehameha. I don't know, maybe no one who wrote for Ghostbusters has seen Dragon Ball Z, but if they have, honestly it's a pretty cool nod. Or a ripoff, I don't know, you decide. So those are the Easter eggs and references that stood out to me. There are a couple more that didn't make the list, and probably some I didn't even catch. Maybe I'll do another video, 10 things I missed in this video that y'all razzed me for in the comments.